10 years of brutal siege, thousands of warships crossing the Aegean Sea. According to the legend, the total collapse of a regional power happened because a prince ran away with another king's wife. We have a famous shorthand for this. Helen of Sparta possessed the face that launched 1,000 ships. The premise strains logic. A coalition of ruthless warlords, spending a decade fighting far from home over a beauty contest and a stolen bride, is an unlikely historical reality. To find the actual cause of the war, we have to look past the romance. The Mycenaean Greeks were hunting a specific geopolitical prize. Between 1194 and 1184 BCE, a fortified city stood here, at the archaeological site of Hisarlik in modern-day Turkey. This was the historical Troy, a center of regional influence and military strength. Troy's power came from its geography. It sat at the Dardanelles, the only waterway linking the Mediterranean to the Black Sea. Any ship carrying goods through this route had to pass Troy, which functioned as a gatekeeper extracting tolls from Bronze Age trade. Excavations at the site provide physical evidence of this wealth. Archaeologists found massive quantities of spindle whorls, indicating that Troy maintained a lucrative monopoly on the regional wool trade. They also discovered hundreds of horse bones in the surrounding Troad. In the Bronze Age, horses were prized status symbols and engines of war, signaling a society with deep resources. Across the sea, the Mycenaean Greeks were an aggressive, expanding power. They mobilized their fleet to break a rival controlling access to global markets. King Agamemnon and his coalition launched those ships to seize control of the region's economics. If the war was fought over trade routes and wool, why did it become a tale of gods and golden apples? The story was built piecemeal over centuries by many different voices processing the trauma of the era. We credit the poet Homer, but his Iliad is a vast fragment of the whole story. It begins in the 9th year of the conflict, dropping the audience into an argument without any introduction to the setting or characters. Key story elements, like the Trojan Horse, aren't even mentioned in Homer's epic. This pottery decoration shows the horse was already a standard part of the myth before our oldest written manuscripts. This physical artifact proves the myth was a collective, evolving oral tradition, shaped and reshaped by generations of storytellers. These stories allowed later Greeks to trace their own civilization's collapse back to a single moment of hubris. Framing the war as a tragedy that destroyed the victors too, the myth explained why their prosperous world vanished into a dark age. If Troy is a historical stand-in for trade and wealth, then Helen represents the shifting ways the ancient world understood power. In ancient literature, she is a complex figure, constantly reinterpreted to explore human culpability. Homer portrays her as a pawn of the gods. In contrast, Euripides depicts her as a manipulative temptress, playing both sides of the conflict for her own survival. The Roman poet Ovid offered a more radical version in his Heroides. He characterizes Helen as a glory seeker, a female equivalent to the warrior Achilles, hunting for her own lasting fame. Helen became a literary blank canvas. Writers used her changing agency to explore how individual choices and transgressive power could steer the course of history. The war ended in a massive conflagration. The sprawling city of Troy was burned to ashes, completely destroyed by fire. Shortly after the fall of Troy, the Mycenaean civilization itself collapsed. The epics mirror this reality through the tragic, often bloody returns of the Greek kings, who found their homes in ruin. The legend reframes these trade disputes as a drama of jealousy, honor, and fate. These personal motives lasted in the cultural memory long after the economic specifics were forgotten. It provided a vocabulary we still use to describe our own conflicts, from the deceptive Trojan Horse to the fatal Achilles' heel. Archaeology gives us the cold economic facts of a conflict over shipping lanes, but it is the myth and the characters within it that grants the war its immortality.